Welcome to Albion TV presents the AO Daily Show, your source of real news in an unreal world. Keeping you up to date on the latest news, events, and the great community of Albion Online. Today is Thursday, the 9th of December, 2021. I am your host, the Shozen One, and today I am joined by Robinhoodrs on the camera, and the great NomadPoncho will be joining us for a new player show focused on PvE in the Outlands and the changes that were brought about with the Lands Awakend update. So, Nomad, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty well. I've been enjoying the update a lot recently. We've been messing around a little bit with some of the Black Zone. A lot of solo and with the guild. Definitely finding the space as a solo can be a little tricky in this new updated Black Zone, with there being so much value out here. But if you
Hmm.
learn to kind of find the spaces in between, you can definitely make quite a lot of money out here. And then in groups, it's just great. There's so much content out here now for small groups. It's been a lot of fun, honestly, just transitioning between the different activities, just with ease, really, with everything being just permanently available like this in the open world now. It's not as tricky as sometimes instances are where you have to get like an exact number of people together to go and do something. It's a lot easier in the open world where you can just kind of take what you've got and do what you can do with your group size.
Yeah, I have found that you can go out solo, and if you're quick about it, you can definitely find some high value PvE targets, some juicy gathering targets for yourselves, some good open world chests that you can snipe and do fairly well as long as you're quick. You have to be quick.
You do have to be quick. Yeah, I think one of the big things I've had this question a lot on my stream of people asking, kind of where's good to go solo is like a very common question people ask. And the tricky thing about that question is it's not really one you can answer, because if you start telling people where's good to go solo, it very quickly becomes a good, not a very good place to go solo, because obviously you either get multiple solos going there to try and also make it good, and then because there's more people bring more people to then fight those people, and then all of a sudden it's just not a viable solo zone anymore. The big thing really is just time zones. Find out what time
Mhm.
zone is going to be okay for kind of when you're playing on it, and then try and go out there and see what you can do within that time. If there's too many groups, if there's too many people, maybe go have a look somewhere else. It's the map really changes based on what time of day it is and what groups are actively playing around the spaces in it. So it's I think that's one of the big things to figuring out the space you have as a smaller guild or a smaller player in the Outlands, and that's one of the nice things, along with the update, that it's really given us, is just the space to be able to play in as varying sizes of groups.
Yeah, I call it looking for the gaps. What you want to do is find
Hmm.
the gaps in the play where people aren't going to be there right now. And like you said, pay attention to the time zones, understand when the CTAs are going to be happening, what kind of routes that people are going to be taking, and try to just not stay in a place too long because you will make a trail. Right now, as you notice that Nomad Poncho is killing things, and as he does, they lay down there on the ground. And if you do that too long, you'll create a trail that other people will be able to follow, and they'll want to follow it. There's often people out here just like Stabber who are looking to kill you while you do your juicy PvE adventures, but that is what makes this kind of PvE so rewarding, and why the Black Zone is uh, a new I want to say like the new hot thing to do for fame farming right now.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, I was just talking about this with you earlier, but yeah, I recently killed a mob in the Black Zone that was worth 380,000 fame. One single mob in the Black Zone. It was a rare boss, and it was a T8 rare boss in the middle of the Black Zone. But yeah, the value out here exists, and it's one of the nice things, I think, that you have these different ways. You could sit inside a solo dungeon or a group dungeon and reliably fame your way up, without much intrusion, or you could go to the Black Zone, and you don't have that consistency doing this open world content that you might get in the instance content, where in a corrupted dungeon you're going to end up fighting another player. In a 5v5 Hellgate you're going to end up fighting another 5 players. If you go and do a dungeon or an Avalonian dungeon that you're going to have that PvE in front of you. The
Mhm.
open world's a little different. You don't know what you're going to find or where you're going to find it or when you're going to find it. But when you do find it, it's very, very valuable. And that's the thing that makes it so worthwhile. And the part that I enjoy about that the most is that it really shakes things up. Your daily gameplay, it's less monotonous. It's really enjoyable just to be able to go out and see what you find that day. My favorite way of playing now is just to bring my gathering tools with me, bring a good combat set with me, um, and then we can go out and kind of fight whoever we can fight. We can gather whatever we can gather. You know, like for example, this here. I don't have my tools on me right now. But this here is a 4.2 enchanted boar. So if I was to gather this gives me the basis to be able to make 6.2, 7.2, and up to 8.2 leather as we go up. So, you know, all this stuff is valuable. All this stuff is important. And the black zone has this higher value just by default here. But as Shozen was speaking about here a little bit, you can see here the mobs that I've been killing, I've kind of been leaving a bit of a trail for myself. One thing I can do with this guy, so you see how now I just walked into his damage? Because I just walked into this guy's damage here, he now can't mount, right? Because he's already kind of thrown
He's in combat. Yeah,
his
you put him
abilities,
into combat.
So we might be able to kill this guy here. Avoid that cleric robe. Oh, so one of the things I dislike about cleric robe, which you probably saw there, is it can activate off reflected damage, which is a little bit rough.
Yeah, it can make it a little bit harder at a time.
Yeah, so he would not have activated that robe, but because I went ahead and did my ability here. Hang on. There we go, nice. That's a 6/1 Shadow Caller. And we got a couple of tools out of it.
That's not too bad. Well, I mean, if everybody can PvP like Stabber, look how quickly you can make fat loots out here as a solo player. Or if we look at it in the reverse, look how quickly Stabber can come and take your 6.1 loots.
That's what I mean. And now if I wanted to, I could go out here and get the stuff because I now have the set from this guy, right?
Now you have the tools.
And this is one of the nice things about it. You never know what you're going to find out here, right? It can be it's very random, you know, and it's really part of the thing I enjoy because it's that sudden kind of little bit of excitement you have, you know. The one thing I was going to go back to here is you mentioned about leaving a cookie crumb trail, right? Like you have the Hansel and Gretel kind of style thing. So yeah, someone could see here. Oh look, this is an indicator of a mob pack that would be here. It's not there, right? Going further down. Here's a mob here. Okay, so we know that there's no one kind of gone this way, but you can kind of explore around and you can see when you start finding these little mob bits that are down. That's when you can know that somebody's close. And one thing I will say, like this is a very obvious sign somebody's been here, right? Which obviously was me. You start to be able to track players down when you do this, and it's something I enjoy. Is kind of that hunting for players. You realize that these little indicators here that there was mobs here and they're not here now. So you can kind of follow these along. And the one thing I will say that is very important is your settings for sound. With this update,
Yes.
you want to make sure that you have the sound effects turned up. You know, that's not something you want down. You don't have to have the ambience up. The ambience is the bird song in the background and all the rustling of the waves and stuff on the coastline. That stuff isn't too important if you don't want to have that up. I personally like to have it for a little bit of immersion, but the sound effects are such a big thing because you can hear players long before you see them. So if you're cautiously traveling around, you're tracking down these mob packs that are down, you know, whether you want to use it to fight people or to avoid them, you're going to be able to hear someone fighting a mob before you see them fighting them. And this is one of the important things here too. The update made it possible for us, which is a great quality of life change, to be able to keep our mounts up and instantly have skills when we dismount. Before,
for PvE,
when you dismounted, you would have your skills on cooldown, and you still do if you're within 40 meters of another player. But if you're not within that range of another player, if you are, by the way, you also get that little exclamation mark that will warn you that you're dismounting near another player, to prevent you from thinking you have your skills when you don't. Maybe if you're going to dismount on a pretty nasty mob pack. But it makes it so easy to be able to ride up to a mob pack, dismount, clear it with your skills, and then immediately mount back up. Whereas before, that was one of the big things that kind of stopped players doing these. Is it was pretty much a death sentence.
It puts you into danger. It's very if you're demounted and somebody comes in and scouts you, they go invisible and you're in trouble. You don't know that it's going to happen, and the next thing you know, you're engaged on top of somebody who you can't escape from. But now, your mount is right there. You can get in very quickly, engage with a mob pack, kill it in seconds, get back on your mount, get out of there, start looking for the next pack, start looking for the next juicy gathering node, the next treasure chest.
Yeah, and then you have a little white circle around your mount that'll indicate. So, for example, it's just here for me. If I was to cross across this border, it disappears the horse or whatever mount you're on. So it's one of the big things. As long as you stay within that border, which you'll be able to see personally, you can't see it on other players. So I don't think Robin will be able to see it on me, but Yeah, it's a really good way of making sure that you stay safe out here. And because if you're dismounted, a group rides up on you, they see you, you have to spend the time. I mean, obviously in comparison here, if we try and mount up, we have to complete this whole cast bar, and then we can mount. Whereas obviously if your horse is right there next to you, it's much faster to remount. And that's one of the nice quality of life changes, because even outside of protection from PvP, it's just been so nice to be able to do exactly like you said. We dismount, we kill these things here, we get the fame, we get the silver, we remount, and we just keep going. And it just reduces the downtime and really does make this a viable way of fame farming. And honestly, with the current fame values that these are giving, and I will say the silver values, a very, very competitive way of fame farming. Now, these here are all pretty low value. We're going to talk, I guess, a little bit about the levels of the mobs, but these are what we would consider to be level 1 mobs.
Yeah, they've
Oh, hang on.
recently been cleared, I would assume. Oh, wait, you got some
So,
fighting going on.
so
That's
I
a
can hear
large
that.
group.
Yeah, they're trying to
Oh,
do
yeah,
one of
you
the
are.
crystal spiders right now. I don't think we'll be jumping on that.
No, that
But
is
like I said,
a good bit of PvP right there. Probably a little
yeah.
outnumbered for what you want to engage in.
Oh yeah,
I
just a
believe
little
you
bit.
just caused that to turn into a blob. You're number 13.
Yes, yes, yes. So oh yeah, we got the tank here running away, missing his snare charge. But yeah, that's one of the things. I heard that before I saw it, so I
Hmm.
very cautiously approached because I could hear a lot of different spells going off. And then as we got closer there, yeah, we made the blob. We saw them all happen. So yeah, use those audio cues to keep yourself safe. But yeah, what we were trying to talk about there was
We were
just
talking about like
the mob levels.
I want to talk about really quickly. You're talking about the trails that you make with the mobs,
Yes.
and both being aware that you make them and that other players make them too. This is something that is a return to an older style of Albion gameplay that used to be quite prevalent in older versions of Albion, where you'd definitely spend a significant amount of your time alive out here in the open world, either looking for players in small groups where you would look for people who were fame farming, or you're fame farming yourself and remembering that you have to either go deep into an area so you don't leave a trail, at least not near the road or any commonly passed area before you start fame farming, or constantly picking up so that you don't create an easily traceable pattern.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing that you can do if you want to help keep yourself safe with that too is, yeah, when we said there about like skipping, like you clear a pack, you clear a few mobs, but then don't take the ones immediately next to you. Maybe just skip a couple of mobs and dismount and then do the ones afterwards. And that way you
Mhm.
sort of break up the pattern a little bit. Yeah, it makes it really difficult for players to stay on top of you. Um, so
And
one of
that's
the
why I
things,
really like that leveling mobs that you were going to talk about in just a second. Was like the leveling mobs really kind of promote that style of gameplay. The get up and move and find something else. Are you're probably very close to a portal zone, or no? Oh, I see what you're next to
we're,
Merlin's Rest. That's
we're in
why.
Summer's Rest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so close to Merlin's Rest. That's why all these mobs are harvested. Because
Yes.
generally,
Yeah.
while I'm out, what I do is I try to go one or two zones away from the heavily traveled areas, and then just go after the ones that have already leveled up, the
It's
evolved mobs, as
really
Google
one
calls
of
them.
those things that's really good with the update is that, like, so areas that have kind of frequent travel, yeah, they have this kind of lower value if they're being done a lot, which kind of forces people to spread out. But also it means that it's not necessarily just the higher tier areas that are valuable. You could find a
Hmm.
tier 5 zone that has very upgraded mobs that are going to give you more fame and more silver than a tier 7 zone with the lowest value of mobs in them. So it really does, encourage you to actually spread out and go and look for value. These mobs here, so this guy here is called a pikeman recruit, and it's actually the lowest value of Morgana mob here we can find, and it really won't yield very much. You can see they're very easy to take down. We didn't even have to use an E there or anything, but we get a very small amount of fame for them. The suppressor here, this crossbowman, as you can see, is physically just in stature a little bit larger than those other ones. And this guy, obviously harder to take down, also leaded us, or has led us there to having over triple the fame that we got from those two individual mobs there. This crossbow suppressor recruit here. So this is the way it is. We have a suppressor recruit. The one we just fought was a suppressor. So this is kind of like an initiate into the ranks of the Morgana mobs. He's not yet had the time to be leveled up and turn into that kind of higher value unit, which is one of the things I really like that they went through and took their names here. Here we have a pikeman. So we've just fought the pikeman recruits. Here we have an actual pikeman. And again, like this is going to give us some higher value. So that's how we can kind of tell the names. Now you do have different ones for the keepers for the different factions, but they all do have this tiering system. So acolyte, occultist. Here is the little mage here, and we can see quite small. She does still put a pretty nasty debuff on you, to be honest, that gives you a damage over time. But yeah, very, very easy to take down, very weak. Now, the upgraded version of that is going to be an Occultist. The mobs all basically have 5 levels. And we've got the level 1s are the kind of the recruit ones, the basic ones, very easy to take down, but very low fame yield. And then they turn up to kind of like the standard kind of soldiers, the regular units, so suppressors, pikemen, and occultists as we have here in the Morgana faction. And then there's actually one more level up where they are visually a little bit bigger and they actually glow. Depending on their faction color, they will change the color of the glow. So Morgana's will be like a red glow, and you can tell that they're very upgraded mobs. The keepers will have like a yellow glow around them when they're upgraded, and the undead are going to have like a green kind of ethereal glow around them too. And then past that, there's 2 additional levels, and that's when you start getting into kind of the boss levels of mobs, and that's indicated by the glow and a little golden circle beneath the mob. And then the rare bosses, which is that there's a tier 8 Morgana rare boss. That was the one that gave me the 380,000 fame. That one it's again a little gold border underneath them, but that gold border is spiky and very easily distinguishable from the other bosses types. But they do hit hard. They are very difficult. I struggled very much struggled with 2 tier 7 mobs actually the other day. I wasn't in the best PvE weapon and setup, but I was a relic or the rarest type of undead archer mob. Plus the second rarest melee kind of swordsman mob, and they were just so hard to beat. They just dished out so much damage, but it was worth it. And in the end, they actually ended up dropping me an 8.3 excellent Thetford Cape as a reward, which is obviously just insane. But that's one of the things we talk about. The Black Zone, it's not as consistent as other areas where you're going to see more regular loot, you're going to see more regular fame, but in the Black Zone, you get these ridiculously high levels of fame and these insane loot drops that are rewarding you for your time.
Oh, yeah, it's not showing the fame. Robin just piped in because he says not showing the fame when you kill people, and that's because we're stalking you and not getting the fame ourselves. Yeah, just you're getting a pretty good fame drop consistently throughout, and I'm sorry, guys, that you can't see that.
Yeah, well, I can kind of give out the values here. So we just had a chest here spawn in this one's a 5-minute chest, and it'll open up at the end of that timer. Currently, the chest on the map here is about 5 minutes away, or 4 minutes 40 away here. Spawned right next to the exit, so we might go and check that one out. This is one of the new chests that spawn, and it's again one of these things that you can do for just added value while you're out here. You're getting these mobs. You can see here, so like we talked about, there's a little chain here on the ground. These are like little indicators that a mob has been cleared here. And we went past the ones before. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and follow this along, and we'll see if we can actually end up finding somebody at the end of this little trail here. Again, here we've got a couple of mobs down here, so these might have respawned. These are very low value though. These kind of
a lot of people are just going to
not.
Yeah, they're not going to even. Most people aren't going to clear those. Okay,
so right down here, I heard it. I also think I heard him mount. Unfortunately, I think I went a little too far, but I believe he just killed a boss over there. But I did just see him on the edge of my screen. Yeah, so we can see the silver piles here. He was just over here. Okay, here he is to the right of me. So this is a carving sword player, I guess, was clearing these mobs on, but he's he did well, right? He had his mount next to him. He saw my name on the edge of the screen. I didn't pull back quick enough, and he just immediately mounted up. It is very difficult, I will say, guys, to get ganked out here, in all honesty. It is very difficult to get ganked out here if you just have your mount next to you, especially like some of the mounts like the armored horses. If you're just going to fame farm, it's very difficult for like an independent player to dismount one now. And as long as you can clear some distance against that first player that spotted you, you can be okay to get away. Obviously, you have to be careful when you're running into kind of groups of players, but it's very safe comparatively with how it was before. So this player might be looking like a little bit of action here.
Do you have any recommended tips for players who are out here fame farming, and anything they can do to reduce the danger that they'd be facing?
So one thing that some players like to do is use things like ambush on the chest piece if they're not particularly worried about what they're faming up. The other one is like an invis potion. So if you see someone coming, you could just invis pot, pop your shoes and invis pot. If you didn't want to mount up there and then, because you're worried about how many people are going to be coming at you or spot you, you could just pop your shoes, pop an invis potion, and just run, and then remount somewhere else safer.
And this guy is seriously thinking about oh, he's bringing friends, maybe. There you go.
This guy's a 6'3" masterpiece claymore. My word, that's a little bit scary for me to take here.
Yeah. Okay.
That might be a little rough. I
He's
don't
like,
know.
"Are you stream?" Okay. Yeah, they know what the deal is. They know who Stabber is. They don't know if they want to get involved in that bit of fame. Oh, how you doing? How to get on TV? Start typing about being on TV.
Okay, you do have tier 4 poison bots on right now, which isn't the best. Love your content, man. Well, he's being a little sweetheart.
Yeah,
He's being a little
he's
sweetheart.
typing
Doesn't mean
to
I'm
you
not going to
as
murder
you.
him, but I appreciate it. Okay, so he's popped his run here. I don't think we catch him, to be honest, with the setup I'm on. It's not exactly... It's a good setup for fighting, but it's
Mhm.
not the best for kind of chasing and stuff in the open world here. We'll see if we can catch up towards him, but obviously also I'm playing a little bit pensively here.
Oh.
Okay, so we're getting some good punches in here. I think he's a little worried because there's a lot of people around, and rightfully so.
He is on the official channel too. This has got to be always got to be fun when you're getting soloed in the open world on the official channel.
So we're just popping our Q here on the Wargloves just for a little bit of repeat mobility.
Mhm.
Also, he's actually ambushed here as well. So what he's
Oh,
doing
see,
here
there you
is,
go.
is quite
Nice.
smart. He's ambushing to kind of buy himself time for cooldowns. We might be able
Yeah.
to catch him with an E here, but I don't want to waste it. Hopefully
And
we can
he's
get
been
another
able to
Q
get
off.
almost all of his health back from the one engagement you were able to get in on him.
That's
he's
right.
playing
Yeah.
quite well.
So the ambush is really good at just kind of giving yourself time for cooldowns. It's one of the things I really like about running ambush. Is it just gives you that time. I actually like running this with refreshing sprint usually, to be honest with you, but it's quite a mana intensive weapon. So okay, here we go. Okay, so now he's in combat with me. He definitely can't leave. Okay, but he does have a better mobility rotation than I do.
Let's see if he can outdistance you once again now that his cooldowns are up.
But this is the thing with the Assassin's Jack is he kind of bought himself time. So he messed up a little bit here, unfortunately for him, because he ran kind of into that territory. Now
Yeah,
we
he
do
didn't
have
want
our
to run in
combo
that
up again
territory.
here.
That will not help him any.
Okay, so I did hit him because I got the refresh on my E there, which means obviously it's made contact with another player. So that's a nice indicator. Okay, so we managed to get another tag in. We're going to keep him in combat here, which is nice. So he has got his dash up again relatively soon. But he's put himself in combat by using his Hunter Hood there. So that's gonna retaliate some damage onto me and put him back into combat, preventing him from being able to leave. This might be the kill zone here, to be honest with you. And we got him. Nice. That's another set in and a set of tier 5 gathering tools as well. No, he says. Okay, so there we go. That's 2 players down in some sort of equivalent gear. We took down the 6.1 player with the Shadow Caller, and that's a 4.2 and 5.1 player. So again, pretty similarly geared here. This is another crossbow player here. But yeah, these guys, it's very active around here. Now you do have to be careful. I was just about to say PoE. Kind of like the majority alliance around this neck of the woods, so they tend to have a lot more people. So one big thing with playing out here, when you get, wherever you're living out of, if it's Martlock, if it's Limhurst, get used to the locals. Find out who lives there, who owns the territories, who owns the hideouts, and use that to your advantage. So you go, okay, this guy is from PoE. He's probably got a hideout in the zone. He might have territory access, and he's definitely going to have some friends around. So if you're ever going to jump on people, just make sure you're careful with who it is you're jumping on, because it can lead to some pretty sticky situations. Obviously, if you jump on somebody and he's pinging the map, he's calling in his guild and alliance, and all of a sudden you're biting off a lot more than you can chew. One thing that can help with that is things like the Undead Cape. You can use that, if you drop below a certain health threshold, then you're going to be able to escape, potentially multiple opponents when you've kind of bitten off a little bit more than you can chew. It's a good safety item. Also, we talked about invis pots. If you're out here just trying to clear mobs and you get jumped on without realizing it, the thing you have to be careful with invis pots is they will break if you have any damage at all, or if you take any damage. So make sure you don't have any damage over time on you. Make sure you obviously you're not going to get AoE'd or something like that, and then you can use that to run away with your shoes quite safely.
All right, I wonder if we can actually maybe find some of those leveled up mobs if we go a little bit farther
Yeah,
out
we're
of the.
heading into a tier 7 zone here, so hopefully we can come across one. We do have some overall higher value here. A lot of these are just the bone archers and stuff like that. These are the kind of second rank mobs. But yeah, it would be nice to find some of the rank 3s and stuff. So hopefully going here deeper a little bit, we'll find them. One of the good things with them is can sometimes to go into those areas of the map that are maybe less traveled. There's a player. Sorry, I'm getting very I'm getting very distracted. But this is all part of the value. People ask how you make money out here. A lot of it's to do with. So this is a little risky because that's a healer. So this is one of those situations where we've realized we've done goofed. But it's a great example. It's potentially a great example. Okay, he actually feared me out of that guy's. Oh my days! So this is exactly what we were talking about here before. Oh my days! The classic Blackstone thing. So be careful who you jump on. Be careful who you jump on. There's the lesson learned. Obviously, so we saw that guy. That guy was usually inspect people. So obviously you can't see on there. But if you ever inspect somebody, you can typically see what build they're in. Key builds not to jump on. I would say typically tanks and healers. That was a healer. So a healer is very rarely going to be alone. It's probably a good idea not to jump on them. But that's one of the things with the Black Zone. 10v1, yes, but that's just the nature of the Black Zone, right? This is a place for large guilds to battle it out with each other for winning the season. So you going here as a solo, you are trying to be cheeky. You are trying to kind of take content out of there, steal content almost, if you will, from the back gardens of these players. And it can be risky, and you will be met with the same force that they would meet other players with. But obviously, it's just worth the risk. I mean, the amount of silver we picked up from mobs and the amount of fame we've got, I would say, already justifies, the loot that or the gear that I lost. It would have been nice to go back and sell the gear,
Well,
and I very much could have done.
a lot of that gear wasn't even yours. I mean, Alvi,
Exactly.
gave up some of that loot. So thank you, Alvi, in chat for donating to the show today. Do enter the raffle. You use !raffle to enter the raffle, and if I see you enter, I will pull 2 raffles in your honor for the great plays you made, but unfortunately, just a couple short of escape.
Yeah, so one of the things we've done here is you've seen we just jumped straight over from Limhurst where we kind of respawned that down here because this is where I usually operate from. We just fast traveled straight up to here in the Black Zone. So one thing you can do is we have right here Merlin's Rest. This is the kind of home set point here. So you can go over to this little ink and quill and paper over here, and you can sign up to set this as your home. And it means that if you want to, you can fast travel back here. Now, if you take any of these portals, any of the portals from the cities to the Black Zone, it will reset it. But if you don't do that, it means you can come out here every single time, which is great. You do have a personal chest here in the middle that you can use to store spare gear sets and items and any of the loot that you get, ready to transport it back down to the Royals if you find a Road of Avalon, or if you want to risk traveling it back to the portals themselves. Or you can just keep it here and try and sell it on the auction house. We are going to have, it's a new edition with the Lands Awakend update. We are having crafting plots coming to the rests, which I'm super excited about because it means that all around here, we're going to have crafting stations, we're going to have cooking, plots, all of this stuff to be able to actually get players to kind of start crafting with all the things they're gathering out here in the Black Zone. So what I like about it personally is it means that if you are like a very competitive player that just wants to PvP all the time, you can pretty much just live in the Black Zone. You can gather everything you need to gather out here as a guild to be able to make your stuff, and you can craft it if you wish to in the rests. But then when you get a little more serious and you want to put down a guild hideout, then you're going to start looking at places where you have bonuses to crafting certain items. For example, just to the northwest of here, there's a couple of guilds with hideouts, and they actually provide a 30% bonus resource return in crafting of some items in that zone. Whereas the rest here only grants you 15% bonuses. Merlin's Rest in particular gives you a 15% crafting bonus over to, or resource return over to bow, dagger, quarterstaff, spear, nature staffs, and all leather armors. So if you're a leather kind of rogue player, it's a decent place to kind of base yourself out of.
Yeah, the rests now are a lot better, I think, with the addition for living out of there, the purposes of living out of there, now that you can actually craft out of there as well. But I do recommend, if you have the opportunity, to try to live out of one of the hideouts. The hideouts have the best returns. You can level them up with energy and get even better returns for gathering. They can be very profitable in the Outlands right now.
Yeah, they're overall just it's one of those things. I think that's really people were disappointed about before with the hideouts first being added. They were hoping that there was their chance to be able to have a place in the Black Zone to call home with all these big guilds fighting over territories. But really, what happened is it kind of forced a almost monopoly on them, where people were renting them out,
Hmm.
from large alliances who would have give them the space, and it kind of just drove power into these big groups, and it didn't really allow those small groups to really effectively compete because they were denied access from all of those kind of areas out here that would allow you any reasonable competition from the people that they were renting their spaces from for their hideouts. Whereas now,
Right.
with the new power cores as a guild, once you get established here, you can drop yourself a little oh my,
The
how many skills
headquarters,
on
yeah,
it?
the headquarters, the HQs, and the headquarters, the HQs are like a invulnerable hideout that is
Yeah,
just for your guild. So if you get pressured, or if you're worried about some giant entity charging you rent, you can go with one of those instead of your traditional hideout, and that makes it much harder for them to extort you, because it goes from a situation where they have to show up for 5 days for an hour to a situation where they have to be there all day, every day for weeks.
that's
And
it, because
that's
you have
much
to
harder to
deny
remove you.
them
Yeah.
sort of plugging those power cores into the territories, and you just can't do that really 24/7. It's very difficult. It takes a very committed effort now. So if you're a small group, it's just not worth it for these large guilds trying to kick you out. So often they won't bother. They'll try and stop you from getting the power cores where they can. But if you're a small competitive group that were highly skilled, you could afford your hideout there, because they're probably not going to commit too much to of the time to get you out of there, because you're not going to be intruding on them enough to them, for them to commit all those resources to you.
Hmm.
So it's just great. It goes for me. This has kind of brought back a little bit of, initially we had Albion being this 5v5 for territories, and it got monopolized a little bit too much. There was some just a very few sort of players that were very good at the game that kind of monopolized all of those fights, so nobody could really get in on it. And then they went to ZVZ, and then it was just all ZVZ. So if you didn't have too many people, but that initial ethos of Albion was that you should be able to fight your larger neighbor if you were just skilled and you were competitive. And with the hideout cores, I feel like we get a little bit of that back, because now you can kind of fight for your corner again without having to have this kind of giant, ever-present Zerg there to protect at those exact timers. You get to play throughout the day, and that's been incredibly enjoyable. This here that we're right next to, though, more importantly for this discussion, is a Merciless Suppressor. So this is a rank 3 mob. So this is leveled up twice from the Suppressor Recruit to a Suppressor to a Merciless Suppressor. And now these are going to be a little bit harder to fight, but they will yield you much higher fame and much higher silver. But they have a lot of skills here, so you can see how many skills this guy's already firing out. As they've leveled up, they've learned new tactics for dealing a lot of damage, and with that, they become a little bit more dangerous. These in particular are quite scary because they actually apply a very damaging or very painful damage over time spell to you if it hits you. And one thing that it can do is interfere with your mount, because if you're trying to gallop, you're trying to get back on your mount, and that bar gets interrupted by a tick of damage, you can't mount in time. You might get in trouble from a player. If you do get mounted, that damage over time is going to prevent your mount from getting its gallop speed back, because you're going to have that damage permanently ticking on you. So it's a little bit scary sometimes fighting some of these mobs when you're on a mount, because of the risk that they pose, but they give you a lot more fame and a hell of a lot more silver for your effort, which is fantastic. Right now we're skipping through a world boss zone. So we don't really have any mobs around on the outside here, other than the resource mobs, the dire
Hmm.
wolves and the moose that you can see.
Undead
Inside
moose.
here,
Yep.
we have some very dangerous mobs. I'll go and peek them real quick. This is really larger group content here,
Mhm.
but these here, this symbol over their head means that they are elite mobs. So these would tear me off my mount the second they saw me if I went close to them, and they would probably just kill me in just a couple of hits. So they are very risky. We have a play. I'm gonna try and
A few
walk through this.
players.
This
Yep.
area is very very busy, and there's not many escapes, so it's a little dangerous passing through here. So we are just going to pass through and try and keep on track, see if we can find a couple more of these upgraded mobs to showcase.
Yeah, we've been giving away some gold codes over the course of the show. I'm going to re-announce the people who have already won. So if you want to know if you've won the raffle, go ahead and take a look at chat right now. I'm re-announcing all the winners. These people have not won twice.
A
I'm
couple
just
of
re-announcing the
questions.
winners.
A couple of questions here we have from chat, which I'll go over. So this
Okay.
is not the test server. This is the live server. We've had a couple of live kills to display on the skill here on the stream here already. Um, we have another question here. What does a guild have to do to be eligible to place a hideout in the Black Zone? You can place one wherever, but just be aware that the local guilds might not take too kindly to you doing it, and it does have a couple of days where you're vulnerable uh, for it being torn down. So
Mhm.
just stay very very aware of that. And then the one thing you do want to look at is upgrading it to a headquarters,
Well, there's
and
two things
that's a little
you
different.
can do. Yeah. So either you can choose to have an invulnerable hideout, which is known as the headquarters, or you can level up your hideout, which gives increased benefits for that territory and gathering, as well as, I believe, fame in the area after visiting. But the hideout, you just have to buy the kit and then place it down in the zone, and then there's a few periods in which you have to defend it from attackers where you will be vulnerable. But if you get past that, it's good, and you just want to level it up using the energy cores. And HQ is slightly different in that you still have to place it, but you also have to have at least 10k season points to place it in the lowest tier territory. Different territory tiers of quality in the Outlands require a different amount of season points that you need to earn. But once you earn them, you can then place it into that territory, just like you would a hideout. But instead of being a hideout, it would be an HQ. So when you put the energy in, it's to keep the HQ status rather than level it.
Yeah, so here we have another Callous Occultist, which is the upgraded version of just the plain Occultist that we're fighting. And she'll continuously summon imps and also do some big kind of damage over time area effects on the ground. Now the Wargloves are pretty good at interrupting those, but you can see here one of them she's going to place down to the damage. That mob there was 20,000 fame and 5,000 silver. That one mob. So obviously that's a very
Not
high value
bad.
amount. And the really nice thing from that is pressing a firewall on, yeah, fire cone on. Okay, we'll keep going. We'll try and focus on the PvE at hand here, so I can showcase the stuff, so we don't run out of time. Seeing as we've already got a good few fights in there already. But yeah, no, so you have all these upgrades, just crazy good. And obviously, you see there's plenty of solo players out here that are doing the same thing. I mean, we already killed two of them. There's another one out there. Then we could have had a fight with if we wanted to. And a lot of these guys aren't in insane gear. People always worry about what tier do I have to be to go to the Black Zone. When can I go? A lot of players out here aren't running really high tier because again, it's just about that risk versus reward balance. You don't necessarily need, or you don't need a tier 8 set to come and take down these mobs. So you don't want to risk that because the reward then might not become worth it. You can go out in a reasonably low tier. I've been out in 5.1 here. I bought a tier 6 set because I was running out of stuff on the marketplace there to buy. Um, but yeah, you can come out here in a low tier set. You can buy a couple of basic gears and just come out here and fight for this stuff. And if
Mhm.
you die, it's not too much of a problem. Again, we've picked up 5k silver per these big mobs, right? So you take a couple of these down, you can potentially just pay for your 4.1 set that you come out in. You can just pay for that by doing a couple of these mobs in the silver you pick up alone. Not to mention the value of fame. I mean, one of the ways I always like to compare it for people is if you look at the cost of a tome of insight, that gives you 10k fame, and it's about, what are we looking at right now? Probably, let's just say 30k silver. It's between 25k and 30k that it usually fluctuates, but that's about 30k silver. So I mean, if that's the value of the fame, 10k fame for 30k silver, then that mob just gave me 25,000 silver,
Mhm.
2.5 tomes of insight, right? That's 75,000 silver in terms of effective value from the fame alone, right? Now, a couple of those big mobs, and in terms of the fame that you've gained from them, you've already paid off like a tier 5 set, right? So you have to think about things in terms of effective value. Don't worry so much about coming out here about potentially losing your gear and then not having anything else, or like, make sure that you always have enough money to rebuy another set, but don't worry about trading a gear set for fame, because that's one of the things you have to think about. It's just am I getting the value out of the set that I'm wearing? The set you're wearing is the exact same as the potions you're using. It's the exact same as the food you're using. It's just another consumable to go through. If you manage to get a couple of 100k fames worth out of a up to, I'd say, like a tier 7 set even, then you've probably paid for that set. You know,
Mhm.
it's so valuable to have that fame, and players can't take the fame away from you. So as a
That's something
new
that you
player
always
progressing
have.
through the
Yeah.
game, yeah, that's locked away, that's safe and sound. So do not worry about dying in here. Take reasonable gear out. You will lose it. You're going to die. I've already died today, but then I've also taken down 2 people, and we've also got a load of fame from the mobs we've killed
Mhm.
in the meantime. So it's just about that value. Have you really, made it worthwhile? And as long as you do that, then you're laughing every single time. It can suck a little bit if you head out and then you die straight away. But if that happens, you've probably made a mistake. Maybe you've gone to a little bit too much of a busy area to start your journey off, right? Go to somewhere a little quieter, get some basic value, and then move on. And you don't have to worry about it. The gear fear is the first thing to get rid of, and in the process, I would say, of dying those first few times, that really helps acclimatize you to Albion a little bit. If you really build up, dying in Albion to this ridiculous degree, to where you're so afraid of even stepping foot out, it becomes a problem. Go out there, take a few downs, maybe get a few wins in a couple of fights, and take some mobs out here, and you'll get much more used to life in Albion Online.
So we have a couple of questions, and one of my own. One is, what tier gear would you recommend people start going out into the black zone in? And my question would be, is there any particular kinds of gear you would say that you should bring out? We talked about the invisibility potions and different types of food that you can bring, but are there any specific gear sets that you think really help with the PvE grind as opposed to other things? Because you can, you know, bank your fame and use it in something else. So you don't always have to use what you're going out to fame in to fame in what you want to get the fame in. You can transfer those credits.
So I say one of the big things to go off initially is don't worry too much about your tier of gear, your enchantment of your gear. What you're looking for is your item power, because that's going to be the important part, and that will change depending on what your specialization in the items is that you have, what their quality is, and then obviously also what their tier is and what their enchantment is. So to be able to do anything at all out here, even up to the tier 8 mobs, you are absolutely fine with 1,200 item power. I'd say that's what I'm in right now in a flat 6 set. It is a really good point to be at, to be competitive in, I'd say, most of the PvP out here, and also easily be able to do all the PvE. Um, you could come out here with as little as 1,000 item power even, which I believe would be 6.1 with absolutely no spec. Would be should be about that point. But it's again, which is very easy to get to in Albion now. That's just 30 mastery, and then you have the 6 and you can come out at 6.1, and it's going to be a bit more expensive. But again, when you build up the spec a little bit, you can just bring out 4.2 sets. And honestly, to start with, you could bring out 4.2 from the get go. Very, very cheap, very attainable, accessible to you as soon as you get to tier 4. And you could come out here. The one thing that you'll have to be careful of, though, if you're doing that, is you need to make sure you have the Reaver level. And the Reaver level is something that you're going to get from just doing PvE, taking down mobs of various types. That's going to build up your Reaver level, and it goes from tier 4, tier 5, tier 6, tier 7, tier 8. And if you don't have, let's say, the Reaver for a tier 8 mob, and you go try and fight a tier 8 mob, it's going to do a lot more damage to you, and you're not going to do as much damage to it, right? So you want to make sure you get that Reaver level up, really, before you try and tackle that tier of mobs, to make sure you're being, like, reasonably efficient with your PvE. It's quite a reasonable waste of time if you're going out without the Reaver and you're trying to take down these bigger mobs, because you could probably just kill the stuff more appropriate for your tier uh,
Hmm.
in a quicker time frame, and you're going to level up quicker, and then you're going to be able to access that Reaver level anyway and go and do that stuff. So yeah, you could get started right from the bat, 4.2 gear, go out to a zone, and then just start straight up with the tier 4 mobs in the Royals or whatever, because there's no tier 4 mobs in or PvE mobs in the Black Zone. It starts from tier 5. So get your tier 5 Reaver from the Black Zone, from the Royal. Sorry, I would
From the
say,
Royals. Yep.
as soon as you hit that, go to the Black Zone. You can hit those tier 5 zones and just get access to this insane value out here, and you will level up very, very quickly. And as we just discussed, if you go down, it doesn't matter. You're risking a 4.1 set doing tier 5 mobs, which is equivalent tier. It's relevant to the mob. You have the Reaver for the mob. It won't be difficult for you at all. And then as you get more, you're going to get more silver from doing this. You're going to get more fame from doing this, and then maybe you can up your gear to, let's say, 4.2, which is a tier 6 equivalent set, or maybe 5.1 or just 6 flat. Check your marketplace to see whatever's cheapest, because that's what you want to do, is make sure you're looking for where the good value is for that source of IP. I say it doesn't really matter what tier. You want to look for the good value on IP. You could have a
Right.
4.2 assassin jacket that's way cheaper than a tier 6 or a 5.1,
Hmm.
or in a town where those 5.1 resources or 6 flat resources are more expensive, maybe, and 4.2 resources are more expensive because they are enchanted and used in component crafting for higher tier resources. Maybe the 6 flats cheaper. So look for IP points. If you want to go out and about tier 6 IP to go and do like tier 6 mobs and stuff like that, then just look for what's cheapest on your auction house.
Absolutely, that's what you want to do. You look for the cost equivalence is what you're looking for. You want to have
Always.
the cheapest cost per IP, really, is what you're going with. Except for in the rare case where you need to get a specific skill at a T6.
Yes, that's one of the big hold off points. Yeah, some skills, for example, on the war gloves here, the 4th Q spell here, Shockwave, is not available until tier 6. Now, Shockwave is a very good spell for being able to deal with ranged players, because you can hit that Q out there as long as you connect them. If they jump back from you or try and kite you away, you can just warp straight towards them, right? So it makes it very good for dealing with ranged players. But you don't get that until tier 6. So if you want to be a bit more versatile on the weapons, you might want to have those tier 6 unlock spells, which do make them a little bit more valuable. And again, just comes down to risk versus reward. Do you need that spell? Are you going to be using that spell? If you can get away with not using it, maybe you don't need to take the higher tier out, So it's just, and that's really, I think, what the update just keeps boiling down to for me. It's just risk versus reward. And a lot
Oh,
of players, I
absolutely,
think, have
yeah.
got very comfortable in the solo dungeons and the group dungeons, in sitting away in this instance content, kind of safely doing this PvE. And they're seeing the value of PvE in the open world now, and gathering and everything else. And they're like, oh, this is insane. It's unfair. How comes it's giving so much? This is broken. It's like, yeah, but you have to think people are risking to go and get that. They're not sat removed from the game world and in this little tuck away. They're out here vulnerable into the open world to, like you saw me before, potentially a group of 10 players that are going to come kick your ass, right? So it's the risk out here, but the reward you get for spending it, it's just far more condensed than having to sit in a instance solo dungeon for ages, when you could come out to the open world and within 5 minutes, get the equivalent of maybe a couple of solo dungeons combined worth of fame and silver.
Absolutely. We have, I guess, the last questions here would be about what tier mount or what kind of mount should we bring out into the black zones? I would recommend the armored horse, right?
So there's there's a little bit of a, I guess, a mix for it. If you want to be gathering some resources out here too, which again from tier 5 I would say you can do. If you're sticking in the tier 5 zones and tier 6 zones, you could bring some tier 5 tools out with you. Don't bother if you only have tier 4 unlocked, but if you have tier 5, you could bring a tool with you. The problem you'll run into then is that armored horses just don't really have the carry weight. Um, so if you're trying to cheap it out, you could wear an armored horse maybe, and then you could have like a skinner's backpack or something on, and then if you're doing skinning, you'll be able to carry that extra resources, because they actually, that's a cape slot that it takes up, but it lowers the weight of the resources.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where an armored horse is going to come in useful, because a riding horse is going to come in
Riding
useful
horse,
because
yeah.
it has the courier spell. And what that does is it adds weight not just to your mount, but to your player. So even if you're not with your mount, even if you get dismounted by another player or whatever, you're going to have that carry weight on you, and you can still move with it. So it makes it a great choice on the stags and the moose and the riding horses. Also, I think the wild boars and the lizards in the game, they all have courier as their carry weight spell, and that just gives you the great option for being able to roam around like this and gather and do PvE and do everything. The armored horse, however, despite not having the carry weight, has a lot more protection. So if someone comes up on you when you're trying to do this PvE and you mount up, it's very difficult to dismount you, because you have that extra armor and the extra CC resistance from the mount stats.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other option you have is something that a lot of people actually like to do, is they take an ox out. Now the ox is horrendously bad if you get jumped on by a gank group, because they're probably gonna take you down. But versus a solo player, an ox is near enough untouchable at this point. Depending on what they're on, it's very, very tanky. Just a little too slow to be able to run out with against the group and stuff if they gank you. So it depends. Some players like to run Oxes, and the tier 3 Ox is very cheap. So you've got a few options. I think if you were just coming out to Fame Farm, my recommendation would be an Armored Horse. If you're coming out to do Fame Farm and perhaps a little bit of gathering, I would say maybe a tier 5 horse or a tier 4 stag. And then some players like to do Oxes. I'm not a big fan of it personally because if you do get jumped on by a group, you've very little hope of escape. There is also the option of like a Swift Claw or a Dire Wolf. They're very fast mounts, so you can keep out of pace with the gang groups, but they are very weak. And if you get slowed, it's going to take you 5 seconds to get your gallop back. Whereas something like a stag is only actually it's only actually 2 seconds that it takes you to get your gallop back. So you get slowed by something, a mob, like we're going to get slowed by this boar here. On a horse, we're actually slow and we don't get our gallop back for 3 seconds. Whereas a stag would be only 2 seconds for being hit to get our move speed back, and then a fast mount like a direwolf or a swift claw is going to be about 5 seconds, and that's a very long time to be slow for when you're getting chased by a group of players.
All right. Well, that's some good advice there. I think it's time for us to start heading out here. I'm going to pull one more round of raffles. Nomad, is there anything else you'd like to tell the viewers before we head out?
Not a whole bunch. I guess we'll just go with that. Personally, I think the update's been fantastic for the game. For me, it's just it's done something that I think Albion's been missing for a while with all the instances that they added, which were great for assuring content availability. Is that stuff got too efficient and it became too valuable, and the open world kind of suffered for it. But now we have this value, this risk reward balance back in the game. Go to the Black Zone, guys. Explore it. It's worth the risk to be out here right now. Whether you're solo, whether you're in a small group, don't take the death is too harsh. Again, just balance your risk reward out, and you'll come up on top of it. Albion's a super fun game if you just kind of let it be. Don't take it too seriously. Just come out here, play, take the deaths as they come. Take the kills as they come, and just enjoy it. It's super fun. If you want to get more competitive, you can do. But even then, just beware of getting a little too into it. It's the politics of a full loot game can get a little intense sometimes. But yeah, no, Albion's in, I'd say, a really good state right now. Yeah, I hope you're all enjoying it as much as I am.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Nomad. Thank you, Robinhooders. We will check you guys out later. We will be back again tomorrow at 18 UTC with another war report, followed by another AO Daily Show and the return of Bogle. So look forward to that. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys tomorrow. We're out.